right. Afternoon, everybody. I am Yamkela Zimal from Further, and I have the pleasure of being with Eugenie Drakes, who is part of our community. She is one of our lovely coaches. The lovely thing about Eugenie is that she has been an entrepreneur, so has walked the very journey that all of our community has walked. But she also gets to then coach entrepreneurs. Thank you for your time and welcome.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right. I think we already started off with, community, right? That you're part of our community. What do you think is the importance of having community, and what does it do for an entrepreneur to be part of a community? And how does it help them kind of deal with any mental health issues that may creep up, or just to be aware of how they're feeling or what they're going through at a certain time?
I think for me, community is something which is becoming more and more relevant and more important. And I think for me, being a member of a community means that there is a support system. There are people that could advise. There are people that can also reprimand, because I have a friend that reprimands me when I'll go to her and she'll say, Eugenie, what do you think you're doing? And with that, you feel safe and you feel protected, which helps me feel powerful to access my power to do what I need to do.
I love the words reprimand and powerful that came in there. I think we're also in a society that almost wants us to do whatever we want. So it's nice to have somebody who can call you to order and say, "Hey, you're not taking good care of yourself. You're going a bit wayward." And I love the word powerful, because so many times you doubt yourself and you're not standing in your power.
Ooh,
So
yes.
that nugget is really important. And I love that you said that, Eugenie. But I think what I'd also like to know is, obviously you've worked with many entrepreneurs in different spaces doing different things. But is there a common thing that you find that if an entrepreneur stands in this truth or does this one or two things, they're able to then succeed and be better mentally equipped to face the entrepreneurial journey?
I think for me, it all starts here in the mind. And I call it the candy floss machine. And I think we all know about candy floss and candy floss machines. So you throw a little bit of sugar in, and then you take the stick. And as you wind that stick round and round, that ball gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when it's finished, you take it and you put it in your mouth, and chops, it comes into a hard, sweet thing, which is not particularly nice. If we are not sharing and getting out of our bodies what is worrying us, if you've got an ear to hear you, you can actually go and you can stop before that candy floss ball gets too big. It's going round and round. And if you speak about it, you hear it, and you will get feedback from the person that's listening to you to shift that train of thought. And I find that is a really, really powerful, for me, powerful metaphor. And I think it explains mindset hugely.
I never thought I'd hear candy floss and mental health put into one sentence or one analogy. And I absolutely love it. I think entrepreneurs also tend to get into their mind, stay in their mind, and just revolve in that almost a stink. They don't get to see the beautiful things about them, because you get put into this, oh, I'm not getting this right or not doing this right, and you don't see your power, like you said. What are the things that maybe we can do to learn to appreciate our power? And I think, like you said, by understanding your power, you are better mentally positioned. What are some of the things that you would tell your mentees, hey, focus on this, and this is how I want you to show up?
Get it out of your body, speak it, write it. And you don't necessarily have to speak to anybody, because what happens when you're in that state and you're feeling weak? All those things from all the years, you're not good enough, you're stupid, you'll never be able to do this, why are you doing that, are going to come up, and they're going to stick to that candy floss. So not only have you got the worry, you've got all that history of little sayings that are going to come to your head. And to get it out and to have somebody that can just feed back to you. Darkness is not a nice place to be in, but there is always light, even a spark in the middle of that darkness. And it depends where your focus is. Are you focusing on that spark of light and growing it? Because darkness cannot exist in the presence of light. Or are you just wallowing in the darkness? And wallowing in the darkness is not a good place to be. 100%.
You get stuck in this mess I think, Eugenie, another thing that we want to touch on, we work a lot with impact entrepreneurs, obviously,
Oh.
and we're dealing with, really sensitive and hard issues. How do entrepreneurs, or you actually stay strong when you're seeing such challenging issues that obviously some entrepreneurs are trying to fix? How do you coach somebody who's dealing with so much hardship and whatever, not so amazing things that are going on in the world? How do they not internalize that, and how do they stop it from, bringing them down, separate myself from actually the issue or the challenge that we're trying to solve?
I think it's a number of things. Number one, something that I don't do and has made a big difference in my life is I do not listen to the news. I also do not like participating in discussions where everybody's been negative and judgmental and that kind of thing, because again, it's not inspiring. The other thing that I really do believe is that one of the reasons why I don't listen to the news is because it brings to me things that I have no ability to make change in. So I would rather look at reality and look at where I can have change and rather try and work with that change. One of the things that I think we really do need to do, and I understand why it's there, but how to fix it. Many people come from disadvantaged backgrounds and they feel that they need to bring others along with them, lift others along with them. And if one looks at it realistically, that is not possible. I always, talk to my coachees about building themselves and their business. Because if you put strong foundations on by focusing inward, you will build a strong business. Once that business is set up and is running, then you can start thinking of taking care of others. Where the difference does come is your business you need to run ethically, respectfully, and giving opportunity, but not giving opportunity necessarily to friends, to family. It's about who is the right person for this job. And then together you build a team that is going to keep that business growing. By doing that, you become an inspiration for others who've watched you. And to inspire others to take action for themselves is empowering. Fixing things for others is, depending on how it's done, for me, is disempowering.
Literally just want to do this. I feel so. I think, especially what you spoke about, that we often want to take people with us, in this journey, and we want to solve everything for them. And I think being from communities where people are looking at you to say, hey, get me out of here, you've been where I am, you need to kind of get me out. And something that you said about building yourself up to be strong so that maybe you can go back into that community and build people up. But there's almost this that really bad connotation about thinking of self first. It's almost like, oh, now you've made it, you're a selfish person. What do I do as an entrepreneur to always be able to put that first, because so I know that if I do better, I can get people up. But what steps can I do, daily reminders, or whatever it is that I can do to make sure that I'm strong enough in myself so that I can be strong enough for my business?
I think the very first thing about that is when one thinks about self, the word selfish comes in exactly at the same time. And it's putting self first, not at the expense of others.
Okay.
So there's a big difference there. Number two, it's also looking at the physicality. Entrepreneurship is challenging. It's like climbing a mountain, and climbing a mountain is not easy. So again, how much are you going to carry on your back as you're climbing the mountain? If you're carrying other people's baggage, it's going to take you a long time to get to the top. So again, physically, we need to be strong. And it's hard to be strong today with all the negativity that's flowing around. And it's not only in South Africa, it's global. That's why I isolate myself from a lot of that I can do nothing about. Negativity, not a great thing. And I think physically we need to make sure that we are keeping ourselves strong, looking after ourselves. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you exercising enough? Are you eating a healthy diet? Are you doing things that inspire you? So, for example, I love theatre. So, for me to go to theatre is such a treat. And I do that because I know it's going to put me in a better place to perform going forward. The other thing also is we always look and we sit in our struggle and we sit with our heaviness. As you're climbing that mountain, you're always looking at the top, and that top never seems to come closer. How often do you stop, turn around, and look at how far you've come?
Never.
And celebrate how far you've come? That is critical. That is critical because we are trying to achieve, endeavoring to achieve. Often we put the goal too far away from us and we never say, well done, well done. That was amazing. Well done.
Like you are the coach I need in my life, like right now. But with that said, Eugenie, like learning to celebrate the small things is so important, especially in it's such a turbulent journey as an
Hugely.
entrepreneur. One moment you're up on top, you're buzzing. The next moment you're not doing well. I think something that also gets entrepreneurs down and into a really dark space is failing, right? Um, how do we fail with panache? How do we learn to fail and fail forward? How do you instill that in your mentees, and how do you make it something that's a normal part of the journey, acceptable part of a journey, but also something that doesn't just cloud all the good that they've done and take away from
it? I don't believe in failure. I don't believe there is such a thing as failure. I call failure school fees. If you do something that doesn't have the output that you thought it would, and it's a negative output, what is the gift of learning in that? So if you can take the gift of learning in that and apply it going forward, you won't have to pay those school fees again.
We have to learn. We have to learn. We have to learn. We don't repeat the same thing over and over and over.
It's also looking back. So just before COVID, I lost my business and I was devastated, absolutely devastated. But I didn't know COVID was coming. So I sat in my pain. COVID arrived and I went, what a blessing. I don't have overheads. I don't have to pay rent. I don't have to pay staff. And more than anything, that put me on the road of coaching full time. And that is where my real happy point is right now. That is where I believe I am having impact and I love every minute of it. So I can look back and say that was heavy school fees, but my journey of experiential learning has happened. I can now pass that on to others to help them fast forward.
And if it's not school fees, it's climbing mountains, it's candy floss. I love all of it. I'm literally obsessed. I think obviously coaches have different coaching styles, right?
Yeah.
And you are creative. You're creative, and I think your style for me obviously would work because I feel like I vibe with what you're saying. But what about your coaching style do you find is the most like instrumental in getting your mentees to be mentally strong or able to open up and share about mental health challenges, and how do they learn to identify them, because sometimes someone is struggling but they can't even identify that it's actually a mental health break that I'm going through. It's just not life simply just crumbling in front of me.
It's actually interesting for me because I can pick it up quite quickly and it comes with body posture. So when somebody's like this and they're talking quietly, I know there's potentially something going on. And that is why I have two things that I offer my mentees. One is business advice and the other is hugs. And I know sometimes it's really difficult and hard, and we all need hugs. So I will ask if they're wanting a session, please to tell me, is it business or is it hugs? Because business, I'm tough. Hugs, I'm more gentle. And sometimes it's business and hugs. And I can often see that by the end of a session, what they came in with, which they thought was a huge problem, now actually is just an empty stick, which they're not going to push back into the candy machine.
Oh, I absolutely love it. All right, Eugenie, from your experience as an entrepreneur, can you give us three things, maybe four or five, but your top three things that have helped you to succeed and stay mentally ahead?
I think you have to keep your passion burning because your passion is the thing that drives you. So again, if you let outside influences kind of dim your passion, you've got to go back and find that passion. And again, that's like sitting at the mountain and looking at where you've come from, or going back and reconnecting with some of the successes you've had. So there's that. The other thing is the naysayers and the people who tell you you can't. Don't listen to somebody that tells you you can't. If your gut feels strongly that you can, go for it. Because as a mentor or as an entrepreneur, nobody could tell me what I should be doing because I knew what I should be doing and it looked strange to some people, but it worked for me. So again, as a mentee, if people are telling you to do something that does not feel right for you, don't do it. Do what feels right for you. Trust yourself. Trust your instinct. And number three, it's the one thing I think that all entrepreneurs hate, and it begins with the F word, but not the four-letter F word. It's financials. It's financials, but you can apply the F word to the financials. However, you absolutely need to understand. And it's overwhelming, but it's actually once you lower your resistance to it and you embrace it, your financials are the blood and the heart of your business. Don't ignore them. Don't let those financials get you down. Start slowly. Start slowly. And as you learn, and get somebody that will explain to you in English, not in financials, so that you can understand it and then you can go forward.
Oh, I love that because we tend to bump into a lot of entrepreneurs who ostrich in the sand their finances.
Guilty.
Oh, what would you look at that? Huh?
Guilty.
And now you're drinking your own medicine. You are applying those three things in your business. And I think it's a lie that doctors can't medicate themselves because this coach is coaching herself through her entrepreneurial journey.
Entrepreneurs have taught me more. Working with entrepreneurs have taught me more than my life journey has taught me. And that is why I love it, because it's not a me on a pedestal to them, it's an exchange. And I love that exchange.
I love that. Always said when we're pairing coaches with their mentees that they'll be a sparring partner. But I have never heard somebody put it so beautifully that it is an exchange. Just as much as you enrich their lives, your life is equally getting enriched.
How do I, as a 73-year-old white woman, okay, get to understand the world we're living in today? By working with 25 to 35-year-old on average mentees opens a whole new world for me.
So, Eugenie, obviously you work with different types of people from different types of backgrounds, right? And obviously, everything that we carry in our lives obviously will affect how we communicate, right?
Hugely.
How do we learn how to communicate our feelings or just learn how to communicate with other people? Because obviously, how you deliver a message to a mentee is very important and how they then receive it. So, how would you advise us to kind of regulate how we communicate? And obviously, if we're all heated and not communicating properly, we're not able to regulate our emotions. So, do you have any, ways that you help mentees learn how to communicate better, learn how to regulate their emotions? Because turbulent journey can bring up a lot of things.
It absolutely can. And again, I think it's that thing about being careful of what you're bringing into the room. So I have a volcano that exists inside me. And when I'm emotionally charged or frustrated, that volcano comes out. So it's something that I do warn my mentees that if the volcano comes, please, I need you to tell me to stop, because sometimes I'm not even aware that it's happening. And if I've had a session where I have actually been a bit hard, I will actually phone back and apologize. Because again, sometimes it's not always easy, particularly if you're tired, if you're overworked, if you're nervous about something, if you've got a deadline and you're rushed. So it's also, I will generally, before I go into a session, spend 5 minutes thinking back of our last session, thinking back of what I want to ask them. So at least I'm prepared when I go in. And I think that makes it for much easier, much easier conversations. It's also when you're going into a negotiation, or if you've got to go and speak to your bank manager and you're feeling weak, don't go in while doing that. Number one, I find dressing makes a big difference for me. And if I'm going somewhere where I'm feeling not very secure, I will make sure that I dress so that I feel like $1 million. And that's kind of like my armor that I go in. So again, and then to prepare myself, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of looking small. So one of the things that I would do if I go, and especially if I don't know all the people there, is I would look for somebody that's standing on their own, and I'd go and talk to them so that neither of us are on our own. And in that way, it's learning. It's a learning curve. You won't always be in a position where you're feeling comfortable, but make sure you do something that makes you feel strong before you go in.
I think the things that we can actually control, right?
100%.
Being prepared, I can control that I show up prepared. Dressing up and making myself feel good about myself, I can control all of those things, and they can lead to a greater boost in how I show up.
Completely. And I've even got one. I mean, I laugh and my mentees love it, but I was underpricing my goods. Most people do that. So I did an exercise with myself where I stood in front of the mirror and I had an object in my hand and I said, 900. And I went, no, 1,000, even worse. And I stood there because actually the correct price for it was 1,500. And I said 1,500 until it was no longer a whisper. I could say 1,500. I didn't have to, because if you do that weak in front of your customer, they're gonna bargain with you. So I had to build myself so that I could strongly say 1,500, and I knew that there would be very little pushback. So it's those little things that make the difference. If you're tired and you can postpone doing what you're doing, do it, because you're not going to do it fully. And do the hard things when you're feeling strongest. And when you're not strong enough, do something that's going to build you and then go back and do it. My oldest son is my biggest hug. I will say to him, I need hugs, and he's strong. And he will give me a hug and I will feel strong. He doesn't have to know what he's hugging me about. All I need to fix me is that hug. 100%.
All right. It's a wrap.
I want a proper clapboard. I didn't have hair, I didn't have makeup, and I didn't have that.